Distinguished faculty, proud families, honored guests, and most importantly, my fellow doctoral graduates, I am honored to stand before you today. I extend my gratitude to the students, faculty, and families who supported us along this journey. Let's give them a round of applause. I entered Brown's Ph.D. program in Africana Studies in 2018. I brought with me a new leather-bound notebook from my grandmother. I filled the first page with a crafted timeline for my graduate career. It was a neatly ordered list of the aspirational academic milestones I would achieve. Today, that notebook sits on my shelf like a war relic, half filled with abandoned research questions, matcha stains from late nights, and notes that eventually became more interesting than my original thesis. The path I imagined is not the one I traveled, and I suspect many of us share the same experience. Academia has a way of presenting itself as a series of prescribed steps, but the most profound contributions rarely emerge from following these steps without hiccups. As we sit here in our academic regalia, the most traditional of traditional attire, I want to talk about the power of being unconventional, unorthodox, and yes, even strange. My PhD journey included 3 different academic advisors, countless redirections, and moments where my academic work felt disconnected from the communities I cared about. I came to think of this process as navigating by starlight, learning to find my way when conventional maps failed me. Like freedom seekers who traveled the Underground Railroad, reading the North Star and constellations as their guide to liberation, I had to learn to find my way when the expected pathways disappeared altogether. The traditional academic model would have told me to focus solely on my research, to publish in the right journals, to stay within established parameters, to be a serious scholar. But what if our greatest contributions lie in the spaces between disciplines, between institutions, between the academy and the public? In my off-campus work, I've come to understand that meaningful impact often requires what I call strategic strangeness, the willingness to position oneself at uncomfortable intersections and to create new methods when existing ones prove insufficient. My engagement with Africana Studies deeply affirmed these alternative ways of knowing and being. Through this education, I learned that we live in a both-and world rather than a binary system of either-or. The knowledge cultivated in my field recognizes no disciplinary boundaries, no artificial divisions between thought and action. During those 7 long years of doctoral study, I found myself not just in the library, but in community education meetings, art galleries, and conversations with local leaders. I wasn't just a student. I was a curator, an archivist, and an organizer. These weren't distractions from my scholarly identity. They were essential extensions of it. The academy often treats such boundary crossing with suspicion. We're encouraged to specialize, to narrow our focus, to speak primarily to others within our fields. But the most pressing challenges of our time, climate change, social inequality, war, and technological advancement demand thinkers who can move fluidly across these domains, those who can translate specialized knowledge into public wisdom. What does it mean to create meaningful impact as scholars? For me, it has meant asking constantly, who benefits from this knowledge? Who is part of this conversation? And who is left out? Confronting these hard questions isn't about doing community service alongside the real work. It is a form of open study that recognizes that knowledge without accessibility is merely privilege hoarding. This approach isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always fit neatly on a CV. It sometimes means saying no to prestigious opportunities that don't align with our values, or saying yes to less glamorous work that does. It means risking failure in public rather than only in the private spaces of peer review. But this is where the magic happens. When we position ourselves at these uncomfortable intersections between disciplines, between theory and practice, we create the conditions for genuine impact. Some of us might be feeling a sense of incompleteness today, that our dissertation isn't quite what we imagined, that there are still unanswered questions, that our contribution feels smaller than we had hoped. I know I do. I want to suggest that this incompleteness isn't a failure, but an invitation to continue the conversation beyond the lab or the library, to allow our work to become an even greater dialogue with the world, proud of the fact that it all began right here at Brown University. The most valuable thing I learned during my doctoral journey wasn't one specific theory or method. It was the process through which I found the capacity to stay present with uncertainty, to follow questions rather than to rush to answers, to build intellectual communities rather than intellectual monuments. The world doesn't need more people who can perfectly perform the role of the traditional scholar. It needs thinkers and creators who can navigate by starlight, thinkers who know how to find their way when institutional maps are not enough. People who can build new pathways between the university and the communities it should serve. Creators who can alchemize their niche expertise into public scholarship. Our times urgently call for change agents who demand different ways of relating to people and to our history. What I learned at Brown, both on and off campus, taught me about the profound value of attending to interconnected struggles that span from domestic to international concerns. It is understanding that the threads connecting my hometown in New Jersey to the neighborhoods in Rhode Island, to Haiti, to the Congo, to Gaza are part of the very same tapestry. We must all use our voices to uplift and to strategize alongside our brothers and sisters across these spaces. As former Brown University president Ruth J. Simmons stated in her recent talk, power is much more potent in the hands of the many, and you'll want to have the public and as many people with you as possible. We have to come together with as much agreement as we can muster. We are a generation of scholars who refuse to accept that our intellectual lives must come at the expense of principled investment and community connection. In the end, it's the actual doing, the process of the work itself, and the people we encounter along the way that means so much more than any title. That notebook I brought with me many years ago remained half empty because I discovered that the most important pages weren't the ones I was writing in isolation. They were the pages of news stories co-created in community among my peers, faculty members, and my fellow graduate students. Amidst COVID-19 and widespread political turmoil, I'd like to think I became a Ph.D. of practice. As we leave this ceremony today, let's carry with us not just the credential we've rightfully earned, but the courage to be strategically strange, to follow unconventional paths, and the celestial navigation that will guide us toward our collective callings. The world desperately needs what we know, but even more, it needs who we are and what we care about. Congratulations, class of 2025. Now go forth and make the history we never imagined.